1950s, my favorite coffee brand was already 70 years old. Today, I'm checking out made in Chicago products that were in everyone's home during that time.
Hi.
Hey Andrew, how are you?
Welcome to the Made in Chicago exhibit.
Made in Chicago Museum displays everyday objects that were produced in the 20th century.
If you're talking about manufacturing, there's no other city in the country that really matches the influence of Chicago. The companies that started here, really the story of America, as they say, is centered in Chicago.
There's so much you could do with a love of history. Why collect this type of stuff?
5-6 years ago, when I was at an antique shop and saw just a beat up old kitchen scale that said Made in Chicago on it, I decided out of curiosity to look up the company that made it and sort of saw an interesting backstory about their days in Chicago in the 1920s and the factories that they operated. And everything in here isn't just on display as a cool thing, it's actually a doorway into a whole story about Chicago manufacturing, the people that made these things.
Andrew has everything from the 1900s all the way through 1970s. Let's take a look up close and personal here.
So really, if you think about anything you use your smartphone for now.
Which is everything, by the way. I mean, all my entertainment, all my contact to civilization, everything is in my cell phone.
Right.
Me, I take out my phone, it's just me, I'm looking at my own movies, my own music. But really, when you think about maybe the 1950s and it's people sitting around one radio.
This was like the state-of-the-art portable radios for the 1950s. And you had Zenith, you had Motorola, still a big name today. That's a car radio from the mid-50s.
Oh, wow.
Admiral is a huge Chicago manufacturer. So if you wanted to listen to music on the beach, you just take your little Zenith or your Admiral radio and pack it in the car with your picnic basket. This is just an example of like what you would have used if you wanted to, spend a day on vacation. You want to film your family at the beach.
Are you allowed to hold things in this museum?
Today's a special
Today is
day.
a special, I'm a VIP situation right now. So this is how I would do like a home movie?
Yeah, and that's from 1950.
I don't even know if I'm looking in the right side of it.
Actually, yeah, I think it's...
I kind of figured there was something.
Yeah, but that's
wild. Oh yeah, look, I can see.
And that's an 8mm.
Dueling cameras right there. Boom, boom. I'm so used to my phone and taking a video anytime and picking up just what was a portable camera and seeing how heavy it was and how hard it was to like crank a lever in order to get 15 seconds of video. Anything else like 1950s that really, when you researched it and read about it, was just really blew you away?
Definitely Chicago was the epicenter of confectionery, candy, chocolate bars, all that, and the 50s was kind of the peak of that too. Mars making Snickers bars and Milky Ways. So if you think of some of the biggest names in candy, you think of Mars, who's still the biggest in the world, and they started in Chicago. So there's an old Snickers box from the 50s. The Curtis Candy Company, which no longer exists, but they created the Baby Ruth and the Butterfinger.
For the enthusiasm that Andrew had for all the candy, but particularly that O. Henry, I'm gonna have to go out and find myself an O. Henry bar. It really takes me back and thinking about like what people found important in the 1950s. Like what was in their cabinet, what kind of candy they were eating, and how they were able to like capture life's moments with the cameras or sitting around a radio and like listening to that for entertainment. It is really very cool to see the evolution of things like the radio and cameras, because we really have come a long way, baby.